What's up, everybody? This is the Hindsight is 2020, brought to you by Leroy Stephan for UFC Fight Night 85. I'm a little bit tardy getting this out. I usually want to get this out on Sunday afternoon, Monday afternoon or so, but it's Thursday and I'm just not putting it out. But I was a little bit sad about my showing, even though I didn't put up a lot of money on this weekend because I didn't think that it was an easy call, and I thought there was some wacky stuff that might go down, and it did. Nonetheless, because of a certain disappointment that I had in my rosters, my lineups pretty much sucked. I mean, my lineups were good. They were balanced and hedged right, but I was heavy on a certain person at the top. It was two people I liked the most on the card, and I'm going to get into that, and one of them failed. So let's go ahead and get into the biggest successes on the night for me. And my biggest successes were rostering Alan Juban and having him as one of my heaviest plays. He finished in the first round. I was expecting him to finish in about the first or second round. Brendan O'Reilly was tough, so I was kind of shocked that he put him away. I thought Brendan O'Reilly, if any of the dogs could get to a decision, I thought Brendan O'Reilly might be that guy. And then I thought Brendan O'Reilly could get the upset because Juban has a propensity for being dropped in the first round. So, that was strange. No, that wasn't strange, but that was exactly what I was expecting. Steve Bossy, I'm glad I played him. I thought, am I playing Steve Bossy too heavy? You know, he just got kicked in the head. He's thinking about retiring. Am I right in playing him just about even with Tahuna? I was right. I'm glad I did. Glad I had good volume on him. Let's see here on the card. Mark Hunt. I'm glad that I had way more Mark Hunt than Frank Mir. I really thought that Frank Mir wouldn't be able to stand and strike with Mark Hunt for too long before being KO'd. I was right. I didn't think Frank Mir had the wrestling. I didn't to get him to the ground, to get to his jiu-jitsu, and even if he did, I didn't know. Mark Hunt has really improved his ground game, so I didn't know. He would really have to do that round after round in order to probably land a submission. And I didn't know if he was going to be able to do that. So I'm glad I was off Frank Mir and heavy on Mark Hunt. Biggest disappointment of the night for me was Antonio Carlos Jr. Wow. He lost and no offense to Dan Kelly, he's an Olympic judoka. I'm not shocked at the way the fight went for how Antonio Carlos approached it. I'm really not. But the thing that got me is that, I was expecting, Antonio Carlos, he showed improved striking from fight to fight. I believe he trains out of American Top Team. Either that or American Kickboxing Academy. Either way, you would figure you've seen improvements in his striking. He's going to continue to improve. He's bigger than Dan Kelly. He's stronger than Dan Kelly. Hell, he out-grappled Dan Kelly in the first round. I was shocked by that. If anything, I thought, Antonio Carlos should be able to win this at range. Even if he doesn't finish, it should be a dominant performance. And Dan Kelly is tough, but Antonio Carlos should rack up the points and have 70 to 120 points at the end of the night. No, I mean, the first round was about what I was expecting, but past that, Antonio Carlos looked terrible. He went in with the exact wrong game plan. He did exactly what you shouldn't do against a world-class grappler. He tried to grapple with Dan Kelly. I thought he was smarter than that. He wasn't. This is why we have to hedge fights, ladies and gentlemen. Because even when we think people will do the right thing, they'll do the smart thing, they don't always do that. And Antonio Carlos Jr. tried to battle in the clinch with Dan Kelly, and he is a five-time Olympian in judo? No way. You're not going to pull that off. So that was my biggest disappointment. I think my second biggest disappointment was Marca Diva, being finished early by Dan Hooker. I thought he was the better striker in that matchup. and I was expecting a good back and forth fight that was going to net me 30 to 50 points. So I think Mark Godiva was my favorite dog. I played more him than Dan Hooker, but I had a respectable amount of Dan Hooker too. I had 2 Dan Hooker entries too, so I didn't leave Dan Hooker out. I just thought for the price range, like I'd rather have Juban or Antonio Carlos Jr. than Hooker. If he was like 9,700, I would have been all over him. But since he was so pricey, I would rather have Mark Hunt, Juban, or Carlos Jr. than Hooker. It was his price that really didn't have me too much into him, because I thought that the Diver versus Hooker was going to be a really, really, really good fight, and it wasn't. It got finished in the first round. I played Johnny. And the other disappointment was the fact that Co He Ham did not get that decision. I thought she won that fight. She definitely won the 3rd round. I don't know about the 1st round, but the reason why I wanted Co He Ham, my pick for like a person I was gonna have on every entry, because I knew they were gonna score big points regardless, win or lose, was Neil Magny or Co He Ham. And because I thought Co He Ham had a big striking advantage, which she did, she outstruck Beck Rawlings. I thought she won that fight. But I thought, listen, if she wins, she should have 70 to 80 points. Or she might finish and have a big score. If she loses, she should have 40 to 50 points. Or yeah, I was looking at 40 to 50 points. I knew that the significant strikes was going to be probably around 100. So I was like, yeah, she's going to score win a decision, at least decision points, even in a loss. So that's the person that I really had on almost every entry, because I really thought she had that match in the bag, but she still got me 50 points in a loss. So, but I'm sorry. This is my biggest regret on the night. I had Neil Magny as my Co He Ham spot. But I thought, hey, Hector Lombard, I rethought it, and I said, if Neil Magny keeps it on the outside, or can for the whole fight, if he can keep it away from grappling, if he can keep it in range and keep it a striking match, he can win. But if he doesn't, he could lose, and lose brutally. And that almost happened in the first round. As a matter of fact, with most of the referees in the world, it would have. So Neil Magny ended up scoring 131 points. And that's a 90-point swing. Or no, so 70, 48, 80, 90. Yeah, I'm right. 90-point swing almost, or 80-something point swing from Co He Ham. So I kind of wish I would have had Magny, but the way that fight went, he almost didn't. I mean, he kind of lost that fight. And luckily for him, he had a really gracious ref who let that fight go, and he ended up scoring, almost breaking some records by punching dead Hector Lombard on the ground 1,000,000 times. So yeah, man, I'm not sorry for that I made that decision, because I thought that would be a close fight that didn't net many big points. But boy, was I wrong. Because Lombard almost finished early, and then Magny finished late and scored over 120 points. I wasn't expecting that. I thought that was for sure to be a decision. Hector Lombard had never been finished before, and I knew about the durability of Neil Magny too. And Hector Lombard tends to slow down too. So I knew that, it was going to be close. It'd probably be 2 rounds to 1 at worst. Neil Magny would probably take one of those later rounds. He ended up doing that too. So I'm not sorry for my decision. It was intelligent. It was the right move. Yeah, I made the right decision. I made the intelligent decision for my volume of who I was going to have, Co He Ham or Neil Magny. Yeah, Dan Kelly was one of the top dog picks, but I think that distinction goes to Steve Bossy overall with 109 points. He was the top player dog. I had healthy amounts of him. He was in my best lineup. I scored 353 points because of Antonio Carlos Jr. If Antonio Carlos Jr. wins in the first round by knockout with his hands like he should, I probably have 420, 430 points. That would have been a great. I had a really good lineup. but for my best lineup. But because of Antonio Carlos Jr. and he was on most of my lineups at the top, because I said, well, I don't know what Juban is gonna do, and he gets kind of rocked early. I don't know if I trust him. I went with Antonio Carlos Jr. He ruined almost all my entries. Terrible. And I didn't play no Dan Kelly. Oh man. All I had to do was go with Juban. I didn't know though. I couldn't. Okay, it was between. Here's my thinking. Dan Kelly has a bad knee. Brendan O'Reilly doesn't. So I said, okay, we go with Antonio Carlos Jr. I got burned. Oh well. Let's see here. Those are my thoughts. Those are my disappointments. I don't have any regrets. I don't regret not playing Dan Kelly. I respect him, dude. Against the mid to lower level opponents, he's got an edge because he's a high level martial artist. Even though his knee is bad and his athleticism is waning, dude is one of the best grapplers probably in the UFC. You're not going to go in there and throw him around for the most part. Although Sheldon Westcott did on The Ultimate Fighter. Antonio Carlos Jr. did too for the first round until he gassed out and stuff. I don't know, man. Dan Kelly, I'm going to have lots of Dan Kelly in the future. Dan Kelly never leaving you off a roster again. That's about the second time Dan Kelly did come through with a shocking performance. You'd be like, what? So I don't know, man. No more sleeping on the man from down under for me. I will have me a healthy amount of Dan Kelly from now on. I thought I played the card well. The winning lineup was like what? It was Antonio Carlos Jr. No, it was Alan Juban, like Mark Hunt, Neil Magny, Jake Matthews, and Steve Bossy, I think, for like 534 points. I would have never played that because I thought Magny and Matthews were both decision type fights. I didn't think Matthews was gonna finish Case necessarily, or Case definitely. I didn't think he was gonna finish Matthews. I didn't think Magny was gonna finish Lombard. That's kind of weird. I thought Bossy could definitely finish Tahuna. But I would have rather had like I don't know, instead of Jake Matthews, like I said, I would have rather had Mark Adiva, because I thought he was gonna score more in a loss, But I don't know. I would have never came up with that roster construction. I would have had my favorite roster construction on the weekend was Juban and Carlos Jr. at the top. And I thought that was going to probably net me big points. I liked it should have been Juban and Hunt. I went Carlos Jr. and Hunt. And that would have been big points. So my stack was messed. It was Antonio Carlos Jr. He brought my whole weekend down, guys. Terrible. He needs to work. You need to go work on your striking, Carlos Jr., because you got loads of potential and you didn't do it. But that's the story of my weekend. Carlos Jr. ruined it. He ruined all my research. It was just him. But that happens sometimes. Great fighter. I think he got a great future. I hope he does well. Yeah, that's the story of my weekend. That's why I'm coming out with this late. I was hot. Well, I wasn't hot. It was just like, what do you have to do to win on this card? Like, you would have had to have, I don't smoke any marijuana, but you'd have had to have a big bag of marijuana and some Quaaludes or something in order to, like, think of that this kind of stuff would happen. I don't know. I don't know what you would have. You'd have to be on some type of drug. Dan Kelly by TKO? What? Come on, man. That's crazy. I can say Carlos Jr. is one of the brightest. I don't know, man. Neil Magny, racking up over 100 significant strikes in like one round. What? I don't know. It's a wacky day. I don't know. Wacky weekend, man. That was hard to peg. So, that's Hindsight is 2020 for UFC Fight Night 85. It was wacky. You would have had to. I don't know, man. I never came quite up with that winning roster construction. I did not think Matthews and Magny would finish. I did not think that fight. I just played it even. As a matter of fact, I didn't even play that much Magny and Lombard because I figured that fight was going to be pretty clinch heavy and boring and stuff like that. So I was not too high on that fight. I thought that was a sure decision. Man, was I wrong, but I did have. At first, I didn't have no Lombard, but then I said, wait a minute. If Lombard gets on inside, he could win that. But yeah, that's the story of my weekend, guys. My best score was. Let me get to it right now. Let me check on my phone. I'm looking. Hold on, it's loading. My best score was 353 points. Well, that's in the main event. I don't even know. I think my best score for the other one was, for the whole card, was 290 points. But my best score for the full card, the later card, was 353 points. It was Bossy, Carlos Jr., Ham, Hunt, and Matthews. So yeah, my weekend was pretty bad. I mean, it's one of the worst weekends I've ever had. Usually, I mean, at worst, I'll like maybe lose half of what I put up. Usually I'm profitable, very profitable, but this weekend was a total loss. So I'm glad I didn't play a lot of money, and most of my plays, like my high volume, was in the quarter arcade. That's how much confidence I had in this card. I was just like, I'm just play a bunch of stuff in the quarter arcade because it's going to take 20 or 30 entries to get it right, and I still didn't get it right. So wacky weekend. It be like that sometimes. But I hope you guys will follow me on Twitter at LilRodStephanDFS. You can check that out in the description. Follow me on Instagram at the same tag. And follow me over at Roto Grinders. No, it's just Lil Rod Stephan, no DFS. For my breakdowns of the fights. And also the NBA Quarter Arcade. I got to do another blog about that. I got frustrated for a long time with the NBA, but now that I've got roster construction down, I'm back into it, and I'm back on my journey to $1 million. So yeah, follow me, guys, and have God bless you, and keep coming back to follow my vlogs.